The moment I stepped into that cafe, it was like stepping back in time. There was Alex, just like I remembered from college, but somehow different. More magnetic. Long time no see, he grinned, and just like that, we were 20 again, laughing over coffees, the years melting away. I didn't see it then, or maybe I didn't want to, but that spark. It was trouble. Big trouble. Walking back home, my heart was racing, and not just from the caffeine. I was buzzing, alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. But as soon as I saw Michael, slumped over his computer, that buzz died. It was like walking from a vivid, colorful world into a black and white photo. Hey, I tried to sound normal, but even I heard the guilt in my voice. Michael barely looked up. Dinner's in the microwave. Alex and I couldn't stop messaging. It was like we were making up for lost time, each ping from my phone a reminder of what I was missing. And every time I looked at Michael, with his eyes glued to the TV, I felt further and further away from him. I was living a double life, and I was getting too good at it. Our anniversary was supposed to be special. Michael surprised me with dinner at our favorite restaurant, but I couldn't focus. My phone was burning a hole in my pocket, each vibration a siren call I was desperate to answer. "You okay?" Michael asked, eyes narrowed. "You seem off." I brushed it off, blaming work, but I could tell he didn't buy it. The conference was my excuse to escape, to meet Alex without any prying eyes. We said it was just dinner, but we both knew it was a lie. The hotel room, the stolen moments. I was in too deep. But it felt like breathing for the first time in years. I convinced myself it was just a fling, an escape from my suffocating life with Michael. Coming home was like crashing back to reality. Michael was waiting, an email open on his laptop. "Your conference was last month," he said, voice cold and hard. I had no excuses, no lies left. But I couldn't confess, not fully. "I met a friend," I mumbled, but the look in his eyes told me he knew. He knew, and yet he said nothing. Just that silent, crushing disappointment. The silence between us grew, a chasm filled with unsaid accusations and unshed tears. I was trapped, caught between the exhilaration of my moments with Alex and the crumbling remains of my life with Michael. It was a house of cards, and I was the fool who kept adding to it, pretending it could stand forever. "I can't do this anymore," I told Alex, my voice shaking over the phone. "This is the last time, I swear." But his words were like honey, smooth and sweet, luring me back in. "Just one more time," he said, and I crumbled. We picked a secluded cabin, away from prying eyes, a final goodbye, or so I thought. The drive there felt like heading towards the edge of a cliff. Every mile a step closer to something I knew deep down was a mistake. But the thought of seeing Alex, of feeling alive again, pushed all reason aside. When I got there, he was waiting, all smiles and open arms. I didn't know it then, but we weren't alone. Michael was out there, watching, the world crumbling beneath his feet. Coming home, the air felt different. The silence was too heavy, and then I saw it, Michael, packing his bags, his face a mask of pain and anger. "How could you?" He exploded, throwing photos on the table. Pictures of me and Alex, our secret moments exposed. My heart stopped. "Michael, please." I reached out, but he shoved the photos closer. "You made your choice." The words, "I want a divorce," hit me like a freight train. I begged, pleaded, tears streaming down my face, but Michael was a stone wall. "I can't even look at you," he said, his voice breaking. That night, the silence in our house was deafening. The news spread like wildfire. Friends and family, choosing sides, most of them siding with Michael. The looks of pity, the whispered conversations, it was all too much. I was the villain in their eyes, the woman who threw it all away for a fling. Moving out was a blur. Each box packed was like sealing away a piece of my life, a piece of me. The small apartment felt cold, empty, a far cry from the warm home I'd shared with Michael. Alone, I tried to reach out to Alex, but he was gone, the phone ringing into nothingness. "It's too complicated," he said when he finally answered, his voice distant. "I'm sorry." There I was, abandoned, the weight of my choices crushing me. In that small, dimly lit apartment, the reality of my situation sank in. No Michael, no Alex, just me and the ruins of the life I'd torn down. Betrayed, alone, and lost, I realized the cost of my actions. The silence was a constant reminder of the price of desire, the echo of a life I once had, now just a memory. The day I tried calling Michael, My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear the ringtone. "I'm sorry. I just can't," was all he said before hanging up. That rejection stung more than I expected. Seeing him later, laughing with friends at a cafe, he looked like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He was happy, genuinely happy without me. It hit me then, the real cost of my selfishness. Driven by a mix of desperation and denial, I showed up at Alex's, hoping for, I don't even know what. Comfort? Escape? But the woman who opened the door wasn't expecting me. Her surprised look said it all. Alex came to the door, his expression a mix of shock and annoyance. "This isn't a good time," he muttered, closing the door on whatever fantasy one was clinging to. Work used to be my refuge, the one place I felt competent, in control. But whispers in the hallways and pitying glances told me the scandal had followed me there too. My professional reputation, something I'd worked so hard to build, was now tainted by my personal failures. When the divorce papers arrived, it felt like signing away a part of myself. Each signature was a confirmation of my mistakes, a binding document of my loneliness. It was real now, irrevocably real. Hearing about Michael's engagement felt like a punch to the gut. Someone else was making him happy, something I'd failed at. The news left a bitter taste, a mix of jealousy and regret. I joined a support group, hoping to find solace among others who understood the pain of divorce. But as I sat there, listening to stories of betrayal and heartbreak, my own guilt suffocated me. I wasn't just a victim of circumstances, I was the architect of my own downfall. Their tales of pain mirrored my own, yet I felt an outsider among them, isolated by the role I played in my story. Each step I took felt like walking through quicksand, every attempt to move forward pulling me deeper into a past I couldn't change. The support group was supposed to be a lifeline, but instead, it felt like a mirror, reflecting back the parts of myself I was most ashamed of. I showed up at Alex's door, my heart a tempest of emotions. "I just need to know why," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Alex looked at me, his face void of the warmth I once thought I saw in it. "It was just a bit of fun," he said, his words slicing through me. Nothing more. That moment, standing there, I realized I was clinging to a mirage. Walking away from Alex's place, his words echoed in my head. The affair, the betrayal, it was all built on lies, a fantasy I'd let myself believe in. The pain of that realization was sharp, a wake-up call to the mess I'd made of my life. I reached out to friends I hadn't spoken to in months, hoping for a lifeline back to normalcy. But the responses were lukewarm, non-committal. It was clear where their loyalties lay. Michael had their sympathy, their support. I was on my own. Trying to move on, I dipped my toes back into the dating scene, but it was like my past was a shadow I couldn't shake off. "I've heard about you," one date said, his voice cold, and that was that. My history, it seemed, was a barrier I couldn't breach. When the invitation to Michael's wedding arrived, it felt like a cruel joke. I stared at it, a mix of emotions raging inside me. With a shaky hand, I threw it in the trash, trying to ignore the surge of pain that action brought. Hearing about Michael's promotion was a bitter pill to swallow. He was moving up in the world, moving on, while my career, like the rest of my life, seemed frozen in time. That sense of stagnation, of being left behind, was overwhelming. One evening, I found myself outside our old house, now home to another family. The lights inside cast a warm glow out onto the street, a stark contrast to the cold emptiness I felt. Standing there, I realized I was truly an outsider now, estranged from the life I once had, the life I once thought I could leave behind for something better. Reaching out to my family felt like trying to cross a bridge I'd burned long ago. "We just want what's best for you," my mom said, her voice tight with disappointment. The gap between us felt wider than ever, their disapproval a tangible thing. It was clear my choices had not only shattered my life but had sent ripples through my family as well. Scrolling through social media one night, I stumbled upon photos of Michael's wedding. There he was, looking happier than I'd ever seen him, his arm around his new wife. It was a visual punch to the gut, the final nail in the coffin of our shared past. He had moved on, and I was still stuck, haunted by the ghost of us. In a moment of weakness, I dialed Alex's number, the familiar digits now heavy with desperation. "I think it's best if we don't talk," he said, his voice distant, a door closing firmly on whatever I thought we had. The rejection stung, a harsh reminder of my solitude. Needing an escape, I booked a trip, a chance to find some clarity among strangers. But as I wandered through new cities, the sights and sounds felt hollow. I was surrounded by life, yet I had never felt so alone. My heart ached for someone to share these moments with, a reminder of what I'd lost. Therapy was my next step, a place to unpack the baggage I'd been carrying. "Why do you think you made those choices?" my therapist asked, her gaze kind but probing. Each session was a small step forward, but the road to forgiving myself seemed insurmountable. I was digging through layers of guilt and regret, searching for a way out of my own maze. Volunteering at a local charity offered a glimmer of purpose. Helping others, even in small ways, brought a sense of worth I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't redemption, but it was a start, a way to look outside myself and the mess I'd made. Running into old friends of ours, the couple awkwardly excused themselves after a brief, strained conversation. "We should catch up sometime," they said, but their hurried departure spoke louder than words. It was clear my actions had alienated me from more than just Michael. My world, once filled with friends and laughter, had shrunk to a lonely speck. Every encounter, every attempt to reconnect, served as a reminder of the cost of my choices. I started a blog, pouring my heart out into posts, hoping to untangle the mess of my thoughts and maybe, just maybe, help someone else feel less alone. The response was a mixed bag. "Thank you for sharing," some said, their words a balm to my bruised soul. But then there were the others, the ones who called me names, who said I got what I deserved. Each comment, good or bad, was a reminder of the duality of my situation. When I saw Alex's engagement announcement pop up on my feed, it was like a punch to the gut. There he was, smiling and happy, ready to commit to someone in a way he never did with me. The sting of betrayal, of being just a diversion, was sharp all over again. It solidified my loneliness, my role as the outsider looking in. Going through my jewelry box, I found the pieces Michael had given me over the years. Each piece a memory, a milestone in our life together that now felt like a lifetime ago. I thought selling them might help me move on, close that chapter for good. But when it came down to it, I couldn't do it. Those pieces, they were part of me, part of my history that I wasn't ready to erase. Attending a local event, I felt the weight of eyes on me, the whispers barely concealed. I spotted acquaintances, people I once considered friends, deliberately avoiding me. The isolation was palpable, a cloak I couldn't shed. I left early, the echoes of their whispers following me out the door. In my search for something, anything, to fill the void, I adopted a dog. That wagging tail and those bright, eager eyes brought a slice of joy into my monochrome world. He didn't care about my past, my mistakes. His affection was unconditional, a rare commodity in my current reality. Trying to rebuild my professional network was like climbing a mountain with no peak in sight. At mixers, I was met with polite smiles, the subtext clear. My personal life was a stain on my professional reputation. It was frustrating, the way my past clung to me, a shadow I couldn't outrun. When the invitation to my cousin's wedding arrived, I debated whether to go. Walking in there alone, I could feel the weight of every gaze, hear the whispered speculations. "That's her," they murmured, pity and judgment intermingled. I sat at the back, my solitude more pronounced amidst the celebration of love. Each of these moments, these attempts to find my footing in a world that seemed to have moved on without me, were steps on a journey I was still learning to navigate. The blog, the rejection, the loneliness, it was all part of a larger process, a path to rediscovering who I was beyond the scandal, beyond the mistakes. But with each step, I found a little more strength, a little more resilience. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to start rebuilding. I dusted off my old painting supplies one afternoon, the brushes and colors a forgotten treasure trove. As I spread the first stroke of paint across the canvas, I felt something shift inside me. Each color, each line was an expression of everything I couldn't put into words. Painting became my sanctuary, a place where I could be messy, imperfect, and still find beauty. The day I bumped into Michael at the bookstore was like a scene straight out of a movie, except there were no longing looks or dramatic music. Just an awkward, hi, and a quick, how are you? Exchanged between two strangers who once shared a life. He looked good, happy even. We parted ways, and that brief encounter was a poignant reminder of how far apart we'd grown. Meanwhile, my blog started picking up traction. Messages from people who related to my story, who found comfort in my words, gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. Maybe, Just maybe, I could turn my mess into a message. The idea of a new beginning, of making something good out of my failures, started to seem possible. But life has a way of throwing curveballs. A health scare knocked the wind out of me, forcing me to face the reality of my situation. Sitting in the doctor's office, waiting for test results, the silence was deafening. The fear, the uncertainty, it was a wake-up call. When the tests came back clear, relief washed over me, mixed with a heavy dose of introspection. It was a reminder of what truly mattered, of how fragile life was. I found a new support group, a community of people who understood loss and heartbreak. Sharing our stories, our struggles, and our small victories, I finally felt a sense of belonging. It wasn't about judgment or taking sides, it was about healing, about finding a way forward. Hearing about Alex's marriage troubles didn't bring me the satisfaction I thought it would. If anything, it was a sad reminder of the cycle of hurt and regret. But it also reinforced a hard-earned lesson. Happiness couldn't be built on someone else's pain. Standing on that bridge, the city sprawling beneath me, I let the rain blend with my tears. I'd walked a long, hard road to get here, a journey marked by mistakes, lessons, and small triumphs. Looking back, I saw everything I'd lost, but looking forward, I saw the faint glimmer of something new. A chance to rebuild, to find peace with the past and hope for the future. My choices had led me here, to this moment of solitude and reflection. It was time to accept the price of those choices and to embrace the possibility of a new path, however uncertain it might be.